Yo, what's up guys? Abel here, and today I'm going to talk to you about the five documentaries that I really feel every filmmaker needs to watch at some point in their career or their life, or some point before they make their next film. If you are in between films or you haven't made one yet, whatever your case is as an independent filmmaker, you need to go out and watch these documentaries. They will blow your mind. I'm kind of jealous of you. I'm kind of jealous if you haven't watched these already, because I wish I could experience watching them for the first time again. They were just so amazing. So let's go ahead and start the list off. The first movie we're going to talk about is a film called Burden of Dreams. So Burden of Dreams is about Werner Herzog and his, I probably said his name wrong, but regardless, he's one of my favorite filmmakers, simply because of the trials and tribulations and struggles he's had to go through on his path as a filmmaker, and to come out on the other end of that as a legendary filmmaker is something I really respect. But this documentary is the story of his movie Fitzcarraldo, and it is fucking insane, the stuff that this guy went through. It will blow your mind. If anything, you watch this documentary, you need to watch it just because it'll show you, no matter what kind of stresses life is throwing at you, no matter what kind of stress you may be under while you're on set, while you're editing, while you're trying to raise money for your movie, whatever you're going through as an independent filmmaker, this movie will show you, you know what? You didn't have it as hard as Werner Herzog did. Because this guy, I mean, when he made Fitzcarraldo, they had to move a 320-ton boat, a ship, a massive ship, over a mountain. And I'm not sure what jungle they were in, but they were deep in some kind of Amazonian jungle. I forget, off the top of my head, I forget. But they had to physically, with manpower, lug this boat over a mountain. And what happened during the making of this is just pure madness. They everything from the lead actor trying to physically assault the director Herzog, and was it Klaus Kinski was the lead actor, and they would constantly argue back and forth. And I don't know about you, but I have been in situations on set, and I know just how stressful it can be when your lead actor or somebody like that, somebody who is supposed to have your back on set, is arguing with you and giving you shit and trying to make your job difficult. I know what that's like. It's extremely stressful, but I cannot imagine what it would be like to be in the middle of a jungle, in those kind of harsh conditions, with a freaking tribe of Indians going to war. Literally, there was a war happening, an Indian war happening in the middle of this film, like in real life, that he was trying to shoot a film in. And then your lead actor is trying to fucking attack you and argue with you the whole time. Insane, very inspirational. You've got to see this movie. If not, just for, if anything, just for the fact that it'll inspire you and show you what you can do if you dig deep and keep pushing through the struggles. Number 2 is a movie called Superior Firepower. Now, this is moving on from that inspirational struggle kind of vibe to a movie that is just, I've seen it like 5 times, because it's just, as a filmmaker, Superior Firepower is just one of the funnest fucking films you will ever watch. It's not just something that you can take away things, take some tips away or take some information away and feel inspired and motivated, but it's something that you're just going to have a lot of fun watching, and it's hard to find things that'll do that, like that they're educational and you're going to want to watch it over and over again. It's just super cool. So basically, Superior Firepower is about it's the story of Aliens, the 1986 sequel to Ridley Scott's Alien, and it's kind of like watching the rise of James Cameron. It's like seeing what it was, like you're peering in to see into the past at what made James Cameron become who he is, because you see, yeah, he's kind of an asshole sometimes, honestly. He's honestly kind of an asshole on set, but that drive and the force of nature that was James Cameron, the way he carried himself on set, the way he knew that the filmmakers and the crew that he had on set with him at all times, they interview him in this documentary, and they tell you it's hard to argue with the guy because he knows more than everyone on set about every job. He's like telling the cinematographer how to do it better. They had to fire the cinematographer because the cinematographer tried to get everybody to rise up against James Cameron, so they had to fire the cinematographer, or was it the first AD? It could have been the first AD. He had to fire a couple people because they were trying to rise up against him and get everyone to turn against him. So he had a fair level of stress to deal with on that movie, but mainly, you get to see what you have to do, how you need to carry yourself. You have to, number one, you have to be super knowledgeable, like he was. He was extremely knowledgeable in every part of the crew, on every aspect, whether it was the cinematography, the special effects, production design. He knew how to tell everybody what to do because he knew how to do those jobs himself. And I think that's extremely impressive because, especially nowadays, most filmmakers cannot say that. They cannot say they know how to do every job, and so it's hard to confidently tell somebody how to do something if you don't know what you're doing yourself. So he was extremely impressive to watch. It's cool to see how he handled everyone trying to fight against him, the crew and everything. Also, you got to check it out. It's super fun to watch, and you'll probably, if you're anything like me, you'll watch it multiple times. So check that out, Superior Firepower, and we're going to move on now because I've talked too much about that one. Number 3, in this day and age, if you're a filmmaker, an independent filmmaker aspiring to be successful in this day and age, you have got to be aware of the current landscape, the current environment as a filmmaker, and what it's like to try to make it, and be successful. Because a lot of filmmakers, they start becoming a filmmaker, and they have this romantic notion in their head, this romantic idea of what it used to be like in the 90s. They still think things are like that. When you're in the 90s, you submit a film to a big film festival and suddenly, boom, you're successful. It's not like that anymore. And you need to watch this documentary because it goes behind the scenes and it shows you what it's really like and what it's, and the reason I say not to be discouraging, it's actually the opposite. I think you should watch this movie. By the way, it's called Official Rejection. I should have said that a long time ago. Sorry. The reason I say you need to watch this movie is not to discourage you. It's actually to help you and be armed with the knowledge that most filmmakers are not armed with. There's an instance in this documentary that's freaking mind blowing, man. This guy submits. I'm telling you, this is crazy. He takes a DVD case of his movie. He purposely doesn't put a DVD in it. He submits the film just as a test, and he gets a rejection letter back that says, sorry, this is not the movie we were looking for, blah, blah, blah. Can you believe that shit? It's mind-blowing, the state at which the film festival circuit in modern-day times, it's insane what it is like. So, if you don't have a big budget to be submitting your film, in other words, if you don't have like $5,000 or a couple $1,000 that you can just blow on submission fees, then you shouldn't be entering 1,000 festivals. But more, before I say anything else, I don't want to spoil it. Just watch the documentary, check it out. It's called Official Rejection. You need to be armed with the knowledge that this documentary will give you, and I think you could still make an amazing film. And I do still think it's worth it to enter the Big 10 festivals, Sundance, South by Southwest, stuff like that. I do still think it's very worth it to enter those. But just be aware, watch this documentary and just, be aware that it's not, the festival circuit is not what you think it is. Okay, moving on to number 4. So, this is another example of a super badass documentary that I have seen probably 5 times. And it's called Hearts of Darkness. It's about the making of Apocalypse Now and the freaking hell that Francis Ford Coppola went through in order to see this movie to fruition. Such a perfect example of what it takes to be a legendary filmmaker. So you have somebody like Francis Ford Coppola, and everybody knows he is definitely a legendary filmmaker. His name, everybody's heard that name, everyone knows he's a legend. But when you watch this documentary, you see just what it takes. That man put everything, he risked everything. He risked, he funded most of that movie himself. I think he spent like $30 million or something. It was some insane number. And he spent his own money to fund that film. I think he mortgaged his house, as a matter of fact. He put his house on the line. He put his life savings on the line. He had already, by this time that he wanted to make Apocalypse Now, nobody else would fund the movie, and he had already become a successful filmmaker. So he had a little bit of cash, and instead of resting on that and saying, you know what, I've become successful, let me just chill and take the easy jobs that get handed to me, this motherfucker risked everything. He put it all on the line just because he had a vision of a movie, Apocalypse Now, that he couldn't live without making. He just had to see it happen, so he risked it all, his house, his life savings, and went out into the fucking jungles of Vietnam to make this movie. And then that's when the hell really started. He had Marlon Brando, a complete, honestly, like as brilliant of an actor as he is, because Marlon Brando is fucking brilliant, but as brilliant as he is, Marlon Brando is kind of a nutcase, and he's a nut that was also trying his hardest to be a dick to the director, Francis Ford Coppola. So then he also had to deal with another nut, Dennis Hopper, who was also trying to be a dickhead, and it was like basically Dennis Hopper and brain fart. Woo! His two lead actors are in competition with each other to see who could be the biggest asshole. And so he's dealing with both of them being assholes to him, arguing with him, not cooperating with fucking Marlon Brando won't even read the lines the way they're supposed to. He wouldn't look at the script. He refused to read the script. And he's sitting there with a limited amount of time. He knows he's running out of time in the middle of the jungle, mosquitoes eating him, covered in sweat. He's lost weight because he hasn't been eating. He's depressed. He's thinking about suicide. I mean, literally, he's going through all this madness. You have to think to yourself for a second, if you've ever made an independent film, whether it's a short film, feature film like I have, it can be stressful. It doesn't always have to be that way, but there are times when it can be very stressful. You're dealing with a lot in your head. You're trying to juggle 1,000 things. So imagine going through all of the regular, normal, everyday stresses of an independent filmmaker. Imagine going through all that while you're also, losing weight in the sweaty, nasty jungles of Vietnam, and having your two lead actors trying their hardest to sabotage the film. Imagine you're going through all that while dealing with all the same normal, everyday struggles as a filmmaker usually deals with. And on top of that, you risked your fucking house and your life savings to make this movie. It's incredible to see, and I can say I can't say that I would do that. I don't know if I would, but I am very passionate about filmmaking. But I think that most people are lacking that little edge that he had to be. They want to be legendary filmmakers. They want to be a successful filmmaker. But are they willing to do what he did? Are they willing to go through that nightmare that he went through to make that film? And are they willing to risk their own personal money, their own finances, their own house? Are they willing to risk everything because they love film that much? Probably not, and that's okay if you're not willing to do that. But I just think that's the difference. People wonder, how do you become these legendary filmmakers? How do you become these famous artists and successful people? And that's what it takes right there. And it's because they are willing to do that. Francis Ford Coppola was willing to go that extra mile and do these crazy things and go through hell to see that movie made. So anyways, number 5. So this last movie, holy shit guys, this last movie is such an epic one that I feel so strongly about. And if you're serious about filmmaking, you will watch this fucking film. It is called The Cutting Edge. But here's the deal, there are so many clueless filmmakers out there. Not talking shit. Maybe I am, I don't know. There are so many clueless filmmakers out there that don't know the importance of editing. Good editing can make or break your movie. When you watch this movie, not only will you walk away knowing the importance of good editing and having a good editor, but you will also learn techniques, because they interview some of the greatest editors of all time. Walter Murch, he edited Apocalypse Now, which we were just talking about, or he worked on Apocalypse Now. He's a legendary movie editor and sound guy, and he gives tips. He gives practical, useful tips you can use. By the way, he's the guy who invented, if you haven't heard of the blink technique in editing, it's so huge. I use it myself, And I learned it from watching this documentary, but now a lot of people are talking about it on YouTube and stuff. But it's basically the concept that he invented himself is where when you're editing a conversation and you're cutting back and forth between two people, when somebody's about to blink, right at the split second they're about to blink, you make the cut there. Because number one, and it's for many reasons. Number one is because their performance looks more powerful when there's not a bunch of blinking going on. When people don't blink as much, their performance looks more powerful. It looks more convincing, more real. Another reason, and I think the bigger reason why he did it is because he said he noticed in everyday conversations when people are talking, someone would say something to you and you blink. It's like you make the blink, and it's almost like you're making a cut in real life. It's almost like in real life people make little edits to their own conversations. It's fucking brilliant. The guy's a genius. But he talks about that in this documentary of how he invented that. And he talks about other techniques. They actually show him editing the movie Cold Mountain. It's so important. Jodie Foster directed a film, and she was talking about how until she got behind the camera and stopped acting for the first time, when she got behind the camera, she didn't even know how important the editor was. I mean, people have no fucking idea. Another really awesome part of this documentary is where Quentin Tarantino discusses the process of editing Pulp Fiction and how he was trying to make the conversations drag on. His editor begged with him, and if it wasn't for his editor, Pulp Fiction would not have been the hit it was, because he was trying to make everything feel like it was taking place in real time. He wanted the awkwardness and slowness of certain conversations, and his editor was like, no, trust me, we gotta cut this down. And thanks to listening to her, Pulp Fiction is what it is. And I think he owes her a lot for that. I can't remember her name, but you got to watch this documentary, man. There's stuff. I think they talk with Spielberg as well, and they talk about Jaws and some different things. They talk about The Matrix. I mean, dude, just go watch this documentary, and don't be one of these filmmakers who doesn't know that. Don't be one of these filmmakers who doesn't understand that editing is so fucking important, where they spend the little money they have on other areas, or they spend all their time trying to concentrate and focus on the cinematography, which is important, or other aspects which are also important, but then they ignore the importance of proper editing. They ignore the importance of the art of what editing is, and they don't want to try to understand it. Become a student of editing. It's so fucking important, and this documentary will open your eyes to a lot of things. So, and it's just a fun fucking watch. Scott talking about it right now, honestly, I've seen it 3 or 4 times. I'm gonna go home and watch it again because it's that awesome. So anyways, that's it for today, guys. Those are the five documentaries that I feel every filmmaker who wants to be successful needs to go out and watch, needs to spend at least one evening or whatever watching it. Hell, I think they're great to play while I edit my own projects because it keeps me going, But anyways, I hope that was cool. I hope you liked the video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the little notification bell, ding that little fucker for me. And I will talk to you guys soon. Peace out.